Hey guys, and welcome to the 33rd installment of Updated Builds, a series of videos where I go back over Warframes that I already made one or more videos about and I bring their builds up to date. Now today we're going to take a look at Titania, who used to be my go-to Eidolon hunter for a while, but then they nerfed the damage she does to the Eidolon and they made it so that the Eidolon basically ignores all the evasion you get from Razorwing. So not only are you doing mediocre damage at best when it comes to the Eidolon, you also die pretty damn fast. And that makes me very sad. But anyway, we're gonna go through the builds that I use on Titania and I switch between them based on what I'm doing. And the two builds I have for you today are very similar. The second one is basically just a modified version of the first one and it's using the Razorwing Blitz Augment. And it's mostly because when I think of Titania and when I want to play Titania, I don't want to play another crowd control frame. I want to fly around with Razorwing. And let's start it off with the Wasp setup, which is sort of a standard Razorwing setup. Now I'm running this with Soma Prime, so I'm using Rifle Amp. If you're using a shotgun, use Shotgun Amp, Sniper Rifle, use Sniper Amp, or if you just want to switch between random weapons, you can go with Corrosive Projection as well. Then I'm running Aviator in my Exile slot, which is a very cheap way to get a lot of damage reduction because you're always airborne in a Razorwing. And it also works on both health and shield, so it gives you basically just a 40% increased effective health. After that, I'm running Prime Continuity and Constitution, which increases the duration on my crowd control abilities, but duration also acts as efficiency for abilities that drain energy, so it reduces the drain on Razorwing. Then to reduce the drain even further, I have Streamline and Fleeting Expertise, that's 2 ranks from the top, which also makes our other abilities very cheap. And by the way, even if you max out Fleeting Expertise, it's not actually gonna do an awful lot, because while yes, you will overcharge your efficiency, which will make Razorwing drain less, you will also lose duration, which will make it drain more. After that, I have Intensify and Transient Fortitude to add some extra damage to our Razorwing, Vitality for some extra beefiness, though this is mostly because I'm running Arcane Guardian, which gives you flat armor, and if you don't have that, I would probably go with Redirection, which will recharge faster. And to top it all off, I am using Primed Flow, which allows me to bank a ton of energy and stay in Razorwing for minutes at a time. That's not the full setup, however, because the damage of Dexpixia, which are the weapons you get in Razorwing, are also scaled by some mods on your primary weapon, not the stats of your primary weapon. So you can kind of put this on whatever you want, though it does make sense to put it on a primary weapon where you would run a setup like this anyway, so you still have an effective primary weapon. And I'm running basically just a standard crit build, so I have Serration for damage, Split Chamber for multi-shot, Heavy Caliber for even more damage, then Point Strike and Vital Sense for crit chance and damage, and finally 3 90% elemental mods. Though this is definitely not the only way to build your stat stick for Dexpixia. It actually translates an awful lot of different mods from your primary weapon, so you can add in Fire Rate if you want Dexpixia to fire faster, or you can even put in dual stat mods for some more status chance. I went for a standard crit build because for me at least it feels the best. Now when it comes to arcanes, I'm personally really enjoying Arcane Guardian and Victory. The 600 flat armor you can randomly get for 20 seconds whenever you get hit feels super nice on a squishier frame like Titania. And since I have a decent amount of health thanks to Vitality, the healing you can get from Arcane Victory whenever you headshot an enemy is really nice as well. And by the way, the reason why I didn't show you a melee stat stick for the Dewata, which is the melee weapon you get in Razorwing, is because I just don't use melee in Razorwing at all. Now this is more of a fun little setup that I use every now and then when I just want to fly around for a bit. I don't actually use it for anything serious. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It does solid damage. It's actually fairly beefy because of the different layers of defense. You have 50% evasion in Razorwing, then you have some health, you have Arcane Guardian for armor if you want to do that. We have even more damage reduction coming from Aviator, and we have the little razor flies flying around distracting enemies. And if the situation gets really bad, well, you still have the rest of your toolkit, so you can, for example, slap a lantern on a nearby enemy, which will distract all the other enemies in range. So overall, it's just a very solid and versatile setup that's pretty strong, fairly defensive, and can do pretty much any mission type in the game. And now let's quickly go over the Razorwing Blitz variant. This one is also using Rifle Amp in its aura because I'm once again using the Soma Prime, and I have Aviator in the Exile slot for some very cheap damage reduction. Then we once again have some duration. This time it's Primed Continuity and Augur Message because I unfortunately couldn't fit in Constitution. Vitality for some extra beefiness. Once again, if you don't have Arcane Guardian, go with Redirection. Primed Flow so I can bank a ton of energy and stay in Razorwing for a very long time. Streamline and Fleeting Expertise, that's 2 ranks from the top to save on some duration. It's actually kind of important to not fully rank the Fleeting Expertise because you want as much duration as you can for the Razorwing Blitz Augment. This augments Razorwing to give you 25% bonus flight speed and fire rate whenever you cast an ability, and it's affected by power strength, which is also why I'm running Transient Fortitude over here, so the buff is stronger. And the reason why you still want a lot of duration is because the duration of the buff is affected by power duration. Now this is basically the same as the Wasp setup, it's just far burstier because you get an insane amount of fire rate from Razorwing Blitz. But it's also not as strong if you let the buff run out, because we replaced Intensify with the Blitz Augment, and it's far more power hungry because you constantly have to cast abilities to keep the buff rolling. It's not too bad though, because the Blitz buff gains duration with stacks, so it ends up being about a 35-second buff. I really like the speed you get from the Razorwing Blitz Augment. The fire rate is so-so because the Xpixia does so much damage, it will one-shot star chart enemies, and it doesn't take too many shots to take down sortie level enemies, so the fire rate isn't really necessary, but the speed is definitely nice. So it's kind of up to you. The first setup is far more energy efficient, so it will allow you to stay in Razorwing for much longer, and the second setup, while not as energy efficient, does a lot more burst damage and is faster. Now, if you would like to try the setup out, but you're not quite sure how to set up the format, the best way to format, in my opinion, is to simply put on all the mods, and if they don't fit, look for the one with the highest capacity drain that's shared between all your builds, format for that, and do that until all the mods fit. And I thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.